Well, this video is going to be on a problem I'm having here. The turn signal stopped canceling and this doesn't work very well. And the horn would blow as I was turning the wheel. It would go honk, 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 and when I'm turning corners and stuff. So I'm going to take the steering wheel off and take some of the steering column apart here and see what's the problem. I'm not going to video turning screws, so don't count on watching me turn things. I'll do it as I take it apart, but there's screws that hold the horn ring on back in that hole and the same in this hole, and then this comes off, and then there's some screws in behind here that take that, you know, this part of the horn ring and then the nut and then the steering wheel puller, and we'll pull the steering wheel, and I'll show you a little video as I go. First things first, when you're working anything electrical or anything like what I'm doing in there, disconnect the negative battery terminal. That way you ensure you don't short anything out. I brought this out in the light. These are what hold the horn cap on, and you can see it's kind of a funny shaped screw, so you need a screwdriver tip. This is a #1 tip. You can kind of see what it's shaped like. So you need this to get that center horn cap off. Alright, the center cap is off. So now we're going to take the horn ring off, and these are the same type of screws that the center cap was held on with. Oops. Alright, get these undone and get this off. Alright, as you can see, we got the horn ring off, and we'll take out the nut. This I just leave all together, kind of, so I don't lose anything. I'll just set it over there, and I'll set that there. Whoops. And the two screws for the center cap. Then this just carefully lifts off. Little plastic thing, and this. And then this is what blows the horn right here. So we'll I suspect something's broken in the turn signal canceling thing here, so it's wanting to go to the left all the time, and so we'll get the steering wheel puller out and get the steering wheel off. I got to get that nut off. The puller bolts in there and then just pushes on there and pulls right off. Now, I don't know if this shows up or not, but GM puts a stake on the steering shaft and a stake on the steering wheel, and you line them up to make sure they're centered. But I always just double check, because sometimes if somebody in the past doesn't put the steering wheel on straight and then the car's realigned, then those indexes aren't always good. But you should always have your steering gear centered when you do an alignment, whether the steering wheel's, if the steering wheel's on sideways, you should always make sure the steering gear is centered before you do your alignment, because these old steering gears have more play when they're off center than when they're on center. So you always want to make sure your steering gear is centered and your steering wheel is correct on the steering shaft. A couple important things here. I always put the nut back on the steering column, steering shaft, so I don't bugger up the threads with the puller. And I always put a drop or two of oil on the threads of the puller, so when you're wrenching on it, you don't seize the threads up inside of this. So just makes life a lot easier when you take care of your tools. Well, the first thing I see is these tabs should be sticking straight up, and they're bent right over, so I'll try and straighten them up without breaking them off. If I break them off, I guess I'll have to weld them. That's where the horn blow thing goes through, so it was probably shorting against that, causing the horn to blow. But this is it wants to spring back, like it's not moving past that spring enough there, so I think I'm going to have to take this apart. This is the apparatus here that moves the cable to the switch at the bottom of the steering column. You can see it move right there. These don't have a switch up here. The switches, well, I'll show you in a minute. Alright, we're under the dash. That is the turn signal switch there. And that is driven by the cable from up above. Alright, well, I can see what's wrong with it just sitting right here. there's a little spring right there that's come apart, little assembly that's come off, and it just needs to be probably put together and lubricated. You can see the other one right there. This one up here is just come off or broken. We'll take this part out and have a look at it. Do that, you unscrew the steering turn signal stalk. This just unscrews out of the column there, and then there's a screw that obviously holds the. Really exciting just watching me turn a screw, isn't it? So that takes this assembly off. Whoops, and that's the part there. Don't want to lose that. But this is the part here that looks like it's just come apart. It doesn't look broken. So we'll just throw it back together and maybe put some lubricant on it. Well, I found out what the problem was, so you can see where this little spring clip goes between these two little things right here. Take that spring clip out of there so I don't lose it, but see these things right here. So see how that's solid there? That's worn away. So that will fall out. That will not stay in there. So I'll hunt around and I need to replace this, get this out too. This component needs to be replaced. There's the lovely part number. So I'm going to dig around in my part stash. I have another steering column, but it's up in Romeo, and I don't feel like driving the round trip to get it with the road construction. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours one way. I'm not going to spend 3 to 5 hours on the road for this. Next time I go up there I'll get it and just won't drive the car much, but I might have one here, so I'm going to hunt around a little bit. Well, after looking through my part stash, I had this part. This is on the steering wheel. This is the part that, you know, clicks by these and cancels the, those are spring loaded into there and cancels your directional signal. But I couldn't find this, and I suspect it's up at my dad's in Romeo, and I just don't feel like driving all that with the construction, spending 4 or 5 hours on the road chasing this piece down. And I want to go cruising tonight. It's Friday night, and the Woodward Dream Cruise is next weekend, so it'll be pretty good. So I'm just going to throw it back together with this broken piece without this apparatus in it. I'll put this on, and I'll put a drop of oil on this. It looks like it was a little dry and on the bearing in the steering column. And that way I can at least drive the car. I'll just have to cancel it manually. But I found one of these brand new in the box on eBay for $18, so I just bought it, and it'll be here Tuesday. So I can get the car, you know, it takes, well, you saw how long. It didn't take but 10 minutes to pull a steering column down and put a new one of these in. So in the meantime, this one's going back in just without these components on it right there that'll cancel a signal. So I'll just have to make extra sure I turn the blinker off after I turn corners and stuff, because it's not going to cancel with these parts out of the column. And I had another thing for the horn blow, and I'll look at that, and if this one's more worn than the other one, I'll use the other one. When I put this in, I'll deal with that, but when I put the new one of these in, I should say. But anyway, I'm going to start working on throwing this back together. I'm going to change this on the steering wheel. Sometimes when you try and straighten these little tabs up, they break off, so I'm just going to swap it out, and then I'll straighten the other one up and save it for parts for the future. So old cars, you know, they dry out after a while, and there is a bearing up here. So I'll just put a little bit of oil in there. I don't want it dripping out on the floor, so I just put a drop. This is the part that makes the turn signals go, so I might just put a little drop on that and just kind of, never hurts to keep things lubricated, and then just move it. That's all it moves to change. If I had the key on, that would indicate a right turn and that would indicate a left turn. But and in the center is off, so off one way, the other way. So, and this is what helps bring that thing back to center. When the canceling thing clicks it, it pushes it through these detents and it springs it back into the center. So there's a little plastic wheel that goes on that goes into the thing there. Just make sure you put a little, a little drop of oil on it is all it takes. And I'll put a drop of oil on the threads and the spline, and that just keeps things so they come apart easier in the future. I've had the steering wheel off on this car in the past. Another thing is the shifter here. Sometimes when these get stiff going back and forth in neutral, you can lift this boot up and put a drop of oil down in there too. But you can see kind of where it moves in there, and I might put a drop of oil down in there also. Kind of, I'll show you. And it doesn't take, but like I say, that's more than enough. Otherwise you end up with a lake of oil in the car. And then I just move it around, and that's just a good thing, keep things oiled up, especially on these old cars that don't get a lot of use, and they've been around for almost 60 years. It's just good to keep things oiled and maintained. Alright, let me get this thing back together. This is kind of difficult holding the camera and showing this, but the screw goes in. There's a lock washer that goes on the bottom side, and that's cut out a little bit, so I set the lock washer into there, and then I can put this in. Now I'm not putting it together with the canceling mechanism, but it goes together the same way if it had the canceling mechanism. So just make sure that's in the spring there where it's supposed to be. And again, if this had the, I gotta find my screwdriver. I guess I left it out of the car, but you don't need to watch me turn screws. But this will work the turn signals now. It just won't have those canceling pieces in there that these bent things right on. So yeah, that broke on me last night out cruising, and it was kind of embarrassing every time I turned a corner having the horn blow. But that's the way it goes sometimes. Alright, so that's in. Now we're going to change this piece and then throw the steering wheel back. And I could change that after the fact, but it's bent and I don't want it hitting something in here and creating further damage, so we're just going to change it. Simple as that. So let's throw the steering wheel back on. Again, just make sure your stake is lined up with the marks on the wheel. And then I'm going to put the nut and washer back on, then the horn blow stuff, and hook the battery up, make sure the horn blows. I put a little oil on the spline and on the threads to the steering wheel nut. I mean, it just makes life a lot easier in the future if you need to get the thing apart. Save gulling up threads. You don't want to put, after 60 years or however long some cars sit, or if they sit in a field without a windshield or windows down, you try and put the nut back on even dry. Sometimes you can gull up the threads putting them on. So a little drop of oil always is a good thing on things like that. The horn blow thing actually looks pretty darn good. There's a lot of brush left on it, more than the other one I had in my parts stash. So I'm just gonna put that one back in. But I put the rest of the, when this completes a circuit to ground, that's why this insulator's on there. And this rubs on that disc that you saw in there when you're turning the wheel to complete, it's just a brush and contact. But when that's in there, all you got to do is complete that to ground, touch that to there, and the horn blows. And that's what that little spring-loaded deal does. It's in there with a plastic piece not touching this, and when you push the horn button, pushes that little steel against this and grounds this basically to that, and completes a circuit and the horn blows. Horns do not, a lot of people think they run a 12-volt circuit up here. No, it's just completing a circuit to ground on the horn relay. So the horn relay is grounded through this, so when you ground this, that's when the horn goes. So you can see this is kind of, it's a spring metal and it's kind of shaped, it's convexed on this side and concaved on this side. So it goes in this way. Line up your, your little holes so your steering wheel will, so that goes in like that. Those are the 3 holes, and you want the big holes because there's little grommet things that go in there. But basically this edge here right there is insulated. It's part of the steering wheel and from the hub. So this is not touching ground when it's sitting in there like that. And when you push the horn button, there's this big plastic piece right here. When you push the horn button, it actually pushes that and shorts that metal disc up against that part in the steering column. And you can see on this how it has those insulators there. So that prevents it from shorting to ground. So if you got a horn that blows all the time, either that wire is shorted to ground coming up the column or somewhere in the car, or something's broken here, there's something in here shorting the thing to ground. When this horn was blowing, I imagine that bent ear was hitting the horn blow thing, because it would blow as you were turning. It would go like that as you're turning the wheel. It wouldn't just stay on. Alright, this is together and that's all working. I haven't got the battery hooked up, but sometimes you get cars, you push the button one way or the other and it doesn't blow. Just take your horn ring off and sand that face of the steering wheel. It's steel, and sand that disc that you saw me, demonstrating, that metal concave convex disc. Just give that a light sanding, because sometimes you get a little corrosion in there or rust and it just can't make a good connection. So you clean that up and then your horn will blow from wherever you push it. So let me put the little center cap on and hook the battery up, make sure the horn and turn signals and everything work. Alright, the battery's hooked up. We got horn. Hopefully we have turn signals. We got right. We got left. So we'll go for a ride, make sure everything works good. Obviously it's not going to cancel signals when I turn, but well, the radio just warmed up and started playing. Radio works good in this car. It's always on. I just leave it on. So there's a good station here, and it's out of Windsor, Ontario, CKWW. It's 580 on the AM dial. So anyway, we'll go for a short ride and make sure the horn doesn't blow when I'm... That's where the horn was blowing when I was turning corners. So the steering wheel doesn't bind or anything like it was, and let's go for a short ride. So no more horn blowing turning corners, but the signal doesn't cancel, as you can see. So now I got to make sure I cancel it. So hopefully those parts are here Tuesday so I can put that together. So, correctly. I'll make a little video of it throwing it together correctly. I'll just add it to a cruising video or something like that. So anyway, if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe. And again, thank you for watching.